I'm Tamsin Rain. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Ocean Culture. We've designed Ocean Talks as our way of bringing our global community together from all around the world, around the stories, the science, and the people that are shaping the future of our ocean. And today's conversation is a really special one. We're welcoming our partners, the PADI Aware Foundation, to introduce something really exciting, the launch of their Global Shark and Ray Census, which is the world's largest diver-led citizen science program for sharks and rays. I'm going to let them tell you more facts and stats about that. But as we know, scientists simply can't be everywhere at once, but divers absolutely kind of are. So it's exactly where this community comes in. So today we're going to hear a little bit about how the census works, how you can get involved, and whether you are a diver or not. And also, crucially, how storytellers like ourselves can play a big role in connecting this science to the people who need to hear it most. So I'm delighted after a few minutes of pain to introduce our guest today, Katie Thompson, Executive Director of PADI Aware, Ian Campbell, Associate Director, Policy and Partnerships, PADI Aware of PADI Aware, and Florian, Digital Campaigns Manager, and the amazing team that make PADI Aware Foundation. So welcome to all of you. And I'm going to hand over to you. And I'm really excited for this today. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Tamsin. Can everyone hear me? Am I good? Thumbs up. Cool. Thank you, everyone that's joined us this morning. The PADI Aware Foundation is really excited to share some of the upcoming work that we have going on. Happy World Ocean Week. It is the 34th anniversary of World Ocean Week, and it is also the 34th anniversary for PADI Aware. And as you can see here, it's also PADI's 60th anniversary. So just a really awesome time to be talking about the future of our oceans. And I'm so happy to be here speaking with all of you because every one of you plays such a critical role in the future of our oceans, either as a creator, a storyteller, or even an ocean enthusiast who is sharing your love of the ocean with others and getting them to change their behavior or come on board and understand the importance of our ocean. The reason organizations like Ocean Culture Life matter is because conservation isn't ultimately a science problem, it's a people problem. And as we all know, culture, which I love as Ocean Culture Life, is what influences people. And that's why it's so important and why we are so excited to talk to you about what we have to share today, because what we do is rooted in science and data, but really it's the stories that bring that work to life. And it's so important that we have people like all of you that can help share those stories with the world. Before I became executive director of PADI Aware, I spent much of my career at PADI for the past 13 years and at Oakley for 10 years before that, working with storytellers, photographers, filmmakers, just creating great content. And what I've really learned over that time is that it is rarely the facts that inspire people, it's the stories that are creating the connection that we all need. So I just wanted to kick it off with that and just thank you again for being here. So I'll start off by just I'm going to spend just a few minutes talking to you about what is PADI Aware Foundation and PADI, like why do we exist? Just so you have a better understanding of the role that we play in the world of ocean conservation. And then I'm going to kick it over for the really interesting stuff over to Ian. So if you want to move to the next slide. Oh, there we are. I think we've already gone through the introductions there, unless you want me to introduce everyone again. Yeah, but me and Ian or Florian are going to talk to you today about a little bit about what we do. So next team. So our mission at PADI Aware, so our mission at PADI is actually Seek Adventure, Save the Ocean. So what we do as the nonprofit arm of the foundation is we drive local action for global ocean conservation. Okay, what that really means is that our ambition is to mobilize every diver as a force for ocean protection. So that's what we do. So we work with PADI, which the benefit of working with an organization like PADI is the scale of the organization. So on the next slide, I think I have a good, oh, I already kind of talked about this. Let's move to the next one. Let's just get into this one. So you can see here some numbers that I'd love to share because it really shows the breadth and the scale of PADI, and we exist because of them. So they started as, like I mentioned, 34 years ago. The Aware Foundation started as Project Aware. So many of you might be aware of the name. You might have heard Project Aware if you're divers and you've been part of the dive community for a while. we changed that in 2020 for a reason. So the AWARE name actually stands for aquatic world awareness, responsibility, and education. So the whole point of the foundation was built to establish awareness with divers and with people getting into the water to teach them about the importance of ocean conservation. So while PADI was teaching the world to dive, which was their logo for, or their our tagline for 60 years, not really 50 years, PADI Aware Foundation was helping create um, content and training on the importance of ocean conservation. What's so important now, I think, is that we've shifted that narrative to be about action, which is what we all need now. So it became more of a project. It's Project Aware and became PADI Aware. And all the work that we're doing now, like I mentioned, is really turning every diver into a force for change and getting them to take action. So what we do with PADI is that we create multiple pathways for divers to get under the water and create impact. And on the next slide, I have some of that some of that impact written here. What we've done over the past, really, I would say the past 10 years is where the most of the action, even the most recent future, is where we've really done more with, shark and ray protection. We've created a program where our dive centers can adopt dive sites around the world and divers go take action within those dive sites. That's called Adopt the Blue. And then we collect data in all of those locations. And one of those programs is the Shark and Ray Census. And that's what we're primarily here to talk with you about today and the importance of what that program is. But what we do now, primarily with PADI, is so we leverage their dive community. We provide divers, so they introduce us to the divers, and we provide the pathways, the courses, the programs that divers can do to take action, divers and non-divers. So what we're doing now, especially with even the shark and ray census that you're going to learn about today, is that anybody can participate. Even with diving against debris, we can have volunteers and people on the surface helping be part of that initiative, in cleaning up the ocean, even if they're not getting underneath the water. So we've created pathways for connection to the ocean, whether that's through advocacy, through signing petitions, through getting under the water and collecting data, which is really where PADI Aware is so critical and so important in the policy space, is that we are the largest community. We are representing the dive community at that level. So most people will never attend a UN Ocean conference. Most people won't read a scientific paper, but they might watch a film, scroll through a photograph that one of you have taken, listen to a podcast, etc. And that's really critical to how we're changing the way people think about the ocean and the role in protecting it. So that's just why I'm so excited that all of you are here today to hear more about what we're doing. So on that note, I'm going to hand it over, I think, to Ian to tell you more about the work that we're doing.
Thanks, Katie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, hi everyone. My name's Ian. I'm the Director of Programs at PADI Aware Foundation. I've been working in conservation for almost 30 years. I know it probably doesn't look like it with my youthful looks. But yeah, and I got into it in shark and ray conservation is what my background. So I kind of want to give you a little bit of background on on the history of the census, because it's actually, while we've just launched it and it's new and fresh, it's actually been bubbling along for the best part of 12 years. And in my previous life, before I joined PADI Aware, I've been with PADI Aware nearly 8 years now, but I worked for WWF, the Wildlife Conservation, not the Wrestling Federation. And I was lucky enough to be based in Fiji in the South Pacific. And in 2014, I was invited, or WWF were invited, to look at shark and ray conservation to Maria, which is a little island in the south in French Polynesia in the South Pacific, where the great and the good of shark and ray conservation were debating lots of issues, bycatch, fishing, marine protected areas. And one of the people who attended was this guy. He's a guy called Mike Newman. He's not a scientist. He's not a researcher. He was actually a PADI dive store owner. And he owned a dive store in Fiji, which is based around shark diving. At the height of the season, you can go out and you can experience diving with, at the height of the season, 30 or 40 3-meter bull sharks. There's kind of 7 or 8 different species of shark, and it's a heck of an experience. It's not your traditional dive. It's more of an experience where you go down and you sit and you watch these sharks interacting. And he always maintained that he was a shark conservation operation that was funded by divers, by a dive shop that he ran. And one of the things, so he set up a lot of different conservation programs. He set up the world's Fiji's first fully protected marine reserve to protect the sharks. And one of the things that he'd set up was working with the dive operators that actually wanted to work with him, because he's quite a definitely forthright individual. Something called the Great Fiji Shark Count, and that was where dive operators around Fiji were going out for 1 month, twice a year. So once in June, once in November, and they would try to count on slates and then tabulate it on bits of paper what sharks and rays they saw and turtles that they saw around about 5 or 6 dive sites in Fiji. And this kind of had been going for a couple of years, and it was very rudimentary, the kind of very patchy data. But actually, it was data that Fiji needed. There was no data on coastal shark and ray species around Fiji. And what was built up was a patchwork data series around Fiji, which then helped the Fijian government and the Fijian policymakers to set up conservation measures to protect these coastal species of sharks that they couldn't do beforehand. Even with this relatively poor quality data, they managed to set up these very well thought through and kind of working conservation measures. And I was sitting for a coffee with Mike one day, and he was going, this is great, but it's kind of it's very difficult. And while everyone loves diving, the dive sector doesn't always play nice together, and it was always finding it difficult to get new dive operators on board. And he said it would be great if an organization like WWF, the world's biggest organization, environmental organization, can get the divers on board, and let's kind of really get this up to speed. Like this could be, it doesn't have to be just Fiji. This could be, this could be Samoa. This could be Tonga. This could be Australia. This could be America. This could be any country that this kind of this system. And I spent a good 3 or 4 years with all the clout of WWF getting nowhere. Couldn't actually get anywhere to get this off the ground because WWF's not really involved with divers. It's a conservation organization, but doesn't get involved with divers. And at the end of my time, WWF, this opportunity opened with, as it was, Project Aware, PADI Aware, and suddenly we had access to divers, and we had a dive community that were demanding something to get involved in the water, to really kind of present what they're seeing and to get shark and ray conservation and citizen science up and running. So that's the whole genesis of the shark and ray census. And what we found is that the data and the information that divers are seeing is a lot simpler and a lot clearer when it comes to what is happening on a day-to-day basis. And what we see, the Fiji shark count and the global shark and ray census is looking to solve one major problem, and that is either lack of data or overly complex data. And what we see at the moment is there's a scenario where you get the scientists who do their in-depth research, and they will come up with the most complicated, complex, in-depth detail shark and ray data that they have in their limited field. And I was recently at the Sharks International Conference in Sri Lanka, where the world's leading shark and ray researchers were sitting down and presenting reams and reams of data that was absolutely incomprehensible. There were data on species that were never kind of really managed. There were conflicting data. And what you tend is the real scientific data like that, when you give it to policy managers and people who have to manage the sharks, they sit down and go, this is great, but what does it all mean? And the Great Fiji Shark Count and the Global Shark and Ray Census is going to cut through all of that. It produces the data that governments need in a format that is easily understandable. And what the Global Shark and Ray Census is going to do is going to look at coastal shark and ray species. We can monitor the populations, and we can work with governments to find out, are your conservation measures for sharks and rays, are they working Are they not working? Are populations increasing? Are they stable? Or are they still decreasing? Essentially, we are fundamentally simplifying the data that's going on, but also the scale that we've got, as Katie showed, the millions and millions of divers, thousands of dive operators around the world. We're science maxing. That's what we're doing. We're going to be science maxing shark and ray science for the for governments and for policymakers. And there are three pathways. So let's go a little bit about the census. There's a couple of problems that are, we're not inventing something brand new. There are existing shark and ray citizen science programs out there, but they fall into kind of two camps. They're either too citizen-y, where the data doesn't really do anything, or they go back slightly too sciencey, where they get a bit too complex, and people feel they need to have at least a degree to get involved with them. So the Global Shark and Ray Census has been deliberately designed to sit across the both camps. It's going to have the scientific rigor, which Florian will talk about in a little bit later, but it also has the breadth so that anybody can get involved. And I'm going to go into a little bit about the three different sort of pathways that people can get involved in the Global Shark and Ray Census. So the first one is engagement. This is really about getting people involved, whether they are dedicated shark and ray divers or whether they're just people who love the ocean. And this engagement, it means anyone, anyway. If you're swimming, if you're on a kayak, if you're paddleboarding, if you're on a boat, if you've got a drone and you see something, a shark array, you can submit that to the census. And what we're hoping to do with this is you might see something interesting. Now, I hope Oliver Sheaf, I'm not sure who that was. I'm hoping you're in the audience because I blatantly ripped this video from your Instagram feed. But what we see here is a winghead shark feeding. It's chasing a small fish. This is something that's never been seen before. And this is not a shark and ray researcher. This is not an academic institution. This is somebody who's accidentally come across a new behavior that has not been recorded in this particular place. So this engagement, people don't know what they're seeing. People don't know that they're seeing something unique. So that's the first engagement. Are we going to be doing lots of dedicated research in this type of pathway? Unlikely, but with the volume that we really want to get, we might see something new and interesting around across the globe. So the second one, this is more for the divers, free divers, mermaids, is sightings. We want to know what is out there and where is it. Anyone who goes out and dives, free dives, snorkels, and sees a shark or ray somewhere in the ocean, we want to know about it. And again, there's a reason for this, in that a lot of divers don't really know what they're seeing. Also, the scientists cannot be everywhere all at once. And Florian's got a really good example of a real life example of something that's come from the census that's only weeks old. So I won't go into too much about this, but we want to know what is where. There are some sharks and rays, all sharks and rays. They're one of the most endangered groups of animals on the planet. And scientists think that they're going locally extinct in some places. And we don't know. We don't know whether sharks are shifting because of climate change, whether they are going extinct, or whether people just aren't seeing them, or whether people don't know that they're seeing them. So this is kind of the core. This is the meat of what the census will be. Tell us what you're seeing and where you're seeing it. Anyone can do that if you're diving or free diving, snorkeling anywhere in the ocean. And then probably the most important one from a scientific perspective is monitoring. So as Katie mentioned, we've got an Adopt the Blue program. Now what Adopt the Blue is any dive operator, and there's nearly 7,000 PADI dive centers around the world, they can identify a fixed dive location, adopt that dive location, Adopt the Blue, and they can then monitor that site on a regular basis. So they build up a local database, a long-term database set at this site. And what this differentiates the Global Shark and Ray Census from any other initiative is it makes 0 an important number. And there's lots of initiatives out there that say, tell us what you see, where you see it, but not many of them say, where are you not seeing sharks and rays? And that's as important as where are you seeing sharks and rays. If there are sites where historically there was nothing and now there are sharks and rays, that's an important discovery. Or you might have a site that had historically loads of sharks and rays and now you're seeing nothing. That's also an important data set. So we're working with the dive centres, collecting data and doing censuses at these Adopt the Blue sites will help us build up a long-term data set at these sites. And that will let us know whether conservation is working or not working at these sites. And again, this is a whole package. So the census is kind of part of a whole package. We are in the process of launching an updated Aware Shark and Ray conservation course. So any divers can go out and they can learn about the impacts facing sharks and rays. They can learn how to take the census. That, coupled with the data, we then present, as Katie said, as PADI Aware. One of the things that we offer as a non-profit is we have access to global United Nations forums and decision-making policy bodies. So we are present at CITES, the Convention on Trade of Endangered Species, at the Convention on Migratory Species. No other training agency has that ability to present the data to the government and decision makers. So every sighting or non-sighting that goes into the census will be presented at the highest possible level, so that it's not just a feel-good factor. This is shaping conservation and also helping shape how sharks and rays are protected in the future. Like I say, there's lots of potential avenues that we're going to see here. We're going to be looking at presence and absence sightings. That's fundamental. It's a simple thing to do, but the scientific research community cannot do it just for the scale that's there. We will look at what species are there. Are there new species? Are there different types of species that are sight? How are they distributed? Are the long-term data sets showing any increases, decreases, stabilizations? There's lots of potential for us to use this data in a meaningful way. So you're not, yes, it's great we feel good, but it's not just feel good. This is actually going to be changing the future for shark and ray science. And like I say, is make sure that divers are often overlooked. And as Katie was saying, there's divers everywhere, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. At somewhere in the ocean, there is a diver who is down there with their own data recording equipment, maybe not even knowing what they're seeing or not seeing. And using that will be fundamental. It'll help us develop protected areas for sharks and rays, not just coastally, but also offshore and in the high seas. And we're looking at whether marine tourism is impacting sharks and rays. We will be able to raise the level of responsible shark and ray tourism based on data and evidence that we're seeing from the census. So I'll stop there. I could wang on for hours on this. I will hand over to Florian. Florian, give me the nod when you need the slides. You're on mute at the moment.
Hey,
I will
Ian.
mute myself.
Ian, before we hand over to Florian, there's just a couple questions that came through on the Q&A.
Cool. Yeah.
That maybe we could just, Lauren actually has two questions, so I thought we could address her questions.
Please, yeah.
She's asking, are shark and ray standings also included in these data sets? And will this census work in tandem with other shark census initiatives, for example, Spot a Shark program?
So the strandings, that's an interesting one. This kind of falls in the first site, the engagement. If you're seeing a stranding and you submit that, yes, that will be those are kind of isolated incidents. They're not really kind of trends on strandings, but yes, anything that is a shark or ray, or even, are you seeing shark fins dumped, in a harbour? Yes, that is a valid reason to submit those data sets. As the census kind of grows and matures, we'll be able to start bringing out some of these more unique data sets. So yes is the answer, but it hasn't been specifically designed for that. That's the deliberate way that it's been designed to be all-encompassing. I see there's
And then the other question was, will it work in tandem with other shark census initiatives? Which you might have addressed, but
so that's a really good question. So yes, so the reason we went to Sharks International I think earlier or late last month, it was a couple of weeks ago now, was to talk about the shark and ray census and how we can add value to existing shark and ray citizen science initiatives. What we are doing at the moment is we are working with all the PADI dive operators to say, what existing shark and ray citizen science initiatives do you have already? And let us know about it, and we can add value. But also we're collaborating with other, so Spot a Shark, yes. We're collaborating with the Shark Trust. We're going to build a database up of existing shark and ray initiatives, and we are going to be openly sharing our data. So we will have data sharing requests. So if Spot a Shark and we're already in conversations with them, they will ask for our data and we will present that data to them. So yes, it's going to be, we're not, one of the problems with science, one of the other problems with science is people hoard their data. That is not what we're going to be doing. We want to be making sure that this is conservation focused, and that's a primary driver for the census. It's not about research, it's about making sure conservation is working. I saw there's another question about, is there an age limit for the census? Katie,
Yep.
can
we take that one?
Yeah.
So the age, this one says open to all divers. So as long as you're a certified, if you're a diver, then obviously you're of age to dive, and it's open to all divers. But actually the census is technically open to anyone, because if you can be a fisherman participating in the census, you could be on a kayak participating in the census from the surface. So technically there's not really an age limit as long as you can get into the app or to the website and log your data. So in that regard, no. And then Natasha just asked, can you participate if you're an SSI operator? As long as you just have to have a login to the Conservation Action Portal, which is a PADI aware property, but anybody can submit data to the portal. It's agnostic to agency. It's based on user. So the more data we can get, the better the program will be and the more potential, it's just going to help it accelerate science. So yes, please participate no matter what kind of diver you are.
And I've got one, there's another question. Would openly sharing data potentially have negative consequences? Everyone gets their hands on it. That's a really good point, but we've already built safeguards into that. So the people will have to, or entities will have to submit a data sharing request. We do due diligence on all submitted data sharing requests. It's not just open access data. Obviously, because if you submit your census data to the Conservation Action Portal and you create your own little submission login data, we're not going to be sharing personal data. So we make sure that that's not going to be shared out. But also, one of the things we're not sharing is we will be showing where surveys are happening, but we won't be showing what species of sharks are maybe aggregating somewhere. So we won't be able to just go log on to our portal and say, oh look, there's a lovely aggregation of hammerhead sharks. I'm going to fish them for their fins. So we're going to be showing where surveys are happening, but we're not going to be publicly showing where species are. But if you are a legitimate researcher, or you pass the due diligence, you can submit a data sharing request, and there are some legal obligations that you will be required to adhere to use that data. So we're trying to build as many safeguards as possible. It's a really good point that was made there. Hopefully that answers that. I think that's the questions.
Yeah, I think Florian can take over.
I shall hand over to Florian.
Perfect. So thanks for all of this, Ian and Katie. So about myself, I'm a digital campaigns manager with PADI Aware, and also creator and a storyteller myself. And I've been in and around the diving industry for about 12 years, so since I was 18 years old, and I've loved telling stories and shooting sharks for all of my life. So I'm super excited to now being able to work on this project and bring this to life, as we all know that storytelling really changes the way people look at things, and we find different ways to not only see the animals but also get people interested on topics. And I'm going to dive into that in just a moment. But before that, I will talk briefly about the scientific logic behind the Sharkaway census beyond what Ian was talked about, because the census itself is a project that's bigger than just PADI and PADI Aware. We understand that to validate all of this data, to make sure it goes to the right sources, we needed scientific help. So we found a partnership with the James Cook University and their Fish and Fisheries Lab. And for the validation process, the data validation actually gets done by their team, led by Dr. Andrew Chin, and they validate the sightings if the idea is correct, and they also cross the sightings with existing scientific publications and data sets on shark ranges, shark species details. So they will identify new things we find where sharks are seen that they shouldn't really do, And as I'm not a shark scientist myself, I actually have a little video from Andrew Chin himself where he explains a bit more about what they're looking for and how this process works.
Do you mean to?
Yeah.
Okay, I shall press play.
Scientists have a problem. They can't be everywhere at the same time, and there's not enough funding for them to go explore all the oceans. Divers are everywhere, and the stuff that they see can be really, really important to science. Hi, I'm Dr. Andrew Chin. I'm the director of the Fish and Fish Lab at James Cook University, and I've been studying sharks and rays for about 25 years. So the PADI Global Shark and Ray Census is the world's biggest citizen science program, helping us count and document and discover sharks and rays around the world. The way this works is that if you go for a dive and you see a shark or ray, you can take a photo of it. When you get back to the boat, open up the app and you log that sighting. For you, it might just be a blue spot lagoon ray that you've seen everywhere. Those images then come to us at the university, and we can look at that photo of a blue spot lagoon ray and confirm, yeah, it's a blue spot lagoon ray. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's something different. And that's where we can take what divers are seeing, merge it with science, and make new discoveries. Firstly, we want to find where species exist that we didn't think that they exist before. So that's something called a range extension. And we've seen this in the past with divers. Secondly, maybe divers can help us find new species. There are still sharks and rays out there that have not been described. Those diver photos can help us do that. And thirdly, in places where there's a lot of diving activity and dive shops are regularly putting people in the water, we can start to build a picture up of what the local population looks like, and then over time, how those populations are changing. One more thing that we can actually do is if divers take a photo of a shark or a ray that's got fishing hook damage or boat strike damage or something like that, we can begin to get a picture of how human activities are affecting sharks and rays and potentially hotspots of where impacts might be happening. We can use that to work with communities and managers to put management and conservation in place. There's a myth that only scientists can do science. That's not correct. We have worked with divers many times in the past to document new species, to document species where we didn't think they were. The stuff that's on divers' SD cards and in their cameras is invaluable. Divers are naturalists. Their records in their cameras are science. That's valuable to us.
Perfect. Thank you, Ian. So this should give,
problem.
you can go to the next slide.
Scientists,
so this should give you a brief idea about the scientific specialties that they're looking for, which especially is range extensions, new species identifications, population trends, as Ian mentioned, and also existing fish hook problems, boat strike problems, or human conflict problems, which then can be raised with local councils or other stakeholders to address conservation issues in their regions. Furthermore, what Andrew asked me to speak about, which is really important for us and them, is that we really trying to collaborate, not compete. Ian spoke about this a moment ago already. Whilst we're still finding out the best ways until this overarching network exists where citizen science data banks can be tracked, we want to collaborate with scientists and organizations out there that can use the data. We have data sharing agreements in place that we can share our data with them. And we are also working with operators on the ground so they can highlight different places the data can be shared to when there are existing citizen science data banks or research projects that could benefit from the data in a region. What we're really looking for is the dark spots of science. So there's places that are incredibly well researched and documented, like the Florida Keys in the US or Mula nowadays in the Maldives, where there's a lot of people doing different projects and there's a lot of data existing. But at the same hand side, there is so many other places where there is either very limited or little research being done about sharks and rays or none at all. And these are really the places where divers go, where divers can support us with data and really fill crucial gaps in data. So just once more to reiterate that is we're looking to collaborate with everyone out there and really fill the dark spots and not compete with any existing programs out there or any researchers doing the good work already. So that's it to the scientific side. And now we're going to dive a bit more into how all of this information comes down to storytelling and where this partnership with Ocean Culture like really comes to life. Ian, could you flip to the next slide? Perfect. So with the shark embrace census, we already spoke a bit about on where we are right now. So that's the slide before that, Ian. The wrong way? Other way? There should be a slide in between, no?
There's no slide in between.
Okay, then luckily I wrote a slide, so no. So before we get into a bit more about where we're going, we already said that we now have a platform that is live and available to everyone. So everyone can join and sign their data in. If they're a scuba diver or not, it's not required to submit data and open to all from all organizations. At the same time, we have a system that has worked in the past with diving and debris and the successes we had there. And we have the scientific backing of a very, very well-established institution that gives us the scientific validation we need to really get this up to a bigger scale. And then last but not least, we have this platform living in a network of other systems, so it communicates with Adopted Blue and Diving and Debris, so we can collect overall data on biodiversity, on debris issues, as well as sharks and rays, that can then be collaborated and shared with different organizations to really make a bigger picture. And now I'm going to talk a bit about where we really want to go and where we need help with to get there. So the goal really is if we can create a lot of attention and awareness around the global shark and ray census, and also educate people about the fact that they might not know where science stands, and the things they see might be scientific advancements. There's been so many instances when I was working with Andrew personally where I shared him insights and he was telling me, okay, there's little research about these animals out there. And I'm like, I know people that see them all the time. Here's some pictures on Instagram. Here's a video someone sent me. And more than 5 or 6 times that I can remember, those were things and he's like, these are not scientifically reported. And for me, those were things that I've seen on a dive. It was a really cool dive, but I didn't assume to know that this might be a breakthrough in science of any way, shape, or form. So it's important that we educate people about the things we see could be really as special as we think they are. And science, a lot of times, is way farther behind as me as a diver would imagine them to be. By letting them know that and share this with them, they will be encouraged to share their data and hopefully have some breakthroughs. And this will really make the system work. And what we also aim to do with this is to fill critical gaps on occurrence and ranges of sharks, especially in places with little research capacity. There's a lot of places out there, especially around the African coastline, the Pacific Islands, and more remote destinations that have pretty much no existing research setups in country. So they may have researchers come visit at times and do specific data samples, but no one that really overall monitors the data. And in a lot of these places that we spoke about, there is existing dive shops there. There is dive tourism. There's people traveling there year round, being in the water, seeing those animals. So we can really fill critical gaps there that science currently can fix. And the beautiful thing is, if we are successful in that and encouraging people just to share their memories with us for a conservation purpose, as to do with their friends at home and on Instagram, we can really showcase the value of the global shark and census and the network that we have to decision makers and policymakers. And that's where data really becomes protection and informs changes and gives all of these more remote places, small island development states, a chance to make the most educated decisions on how to best manage the marine resources. And we can directly work with them on doing this. So that's really the pipeline that we're working on. And that's where you guys really come in as storytellers, as creators, as people that share what we have on the water. And that's what I want to dive a bit more into now. Perfect. So before we dive into the creative side, there is actually something that Ian hinted on previously. So we said about we're looking for data gaps. And before we even properly launched the Global Shark and Ray Census, the team from Dr. Andrew Chin actually figured out there was quite a few test submissions from the beta stage in Vanuatu. Vanuatu being one of these locations with very little research being done. And through the beta testing of the Global Shark and Ray Census, initially they reported they found a stingray being sighted there that wasn't meant to be there. And they confirmed it with the operator, they got data and they figured out, okay, this stingray that's not meant to be existent there based on the scientific terminology we have is obviously there. And now within the last 4 weeks, there's actually now been 5 different species that have been reported in Vanuatu, which scientifically in all records weren't meant to be there. And these sightings are now being taken into a paper to adjust the official data set of sharks and rays around Vanuatu, which is currently being reviewed. So the review process will be a while, but it is just to show how likely it is that we can actually drive those advances, as we've already been able to find 5 species that shouldn't have been there in a place like Vanuatu, where many divers go, but scientists don't. And hopefully we can find more and more of these examples to just create a good baseline of what exists in places that aren't that well researched. Ian? Yeah. Now, how are we trying to get people involved in this project and really get it off the ground? So from our marketing, storytelling, and communication side, there is really 3 main activities we're running right now. And this is where we will need your help with, and we invite every one of you guys to join us and help us get this live. So overall, what we start ramping up doing more, and we will do more and more in the future, is just create great stories and content around shark and rays, and get people inspired by these animals, share that they have problems, but also share what we can do, and find ways that bring people on board to want to learn more about these things or to be fascinated by these animals, and showcase that the Global Shark and Ray Census is a very easy way for people to get involved and support this mission. Secondly, something that might be interesting to all photographers or creators out there, we are currently also running global photo contests with Scuba Diving Magazine, and there is a dedicated Shark and Ray category there to highlight the census, and there's some great prizes. So for every one of you guys, I'll post a link into the comments later. Submit your shark pictures there. It's a great tool for us to drive awareness around the magic of these animals, and there's also some really great prizes in there for you guys to win. And then last but not least, starting in August up until the end of September and beyond, we will be running a challenge called the Shark and Ray Discovery Challenge. So how this challenge will look like, we will have a special edition certification card with the picture that you can see on the slide here, given to the first 200 people that are able to identify 30 different shark and ray species on the census. So all the pictures that are uploaded are validated by the team at the James Cook University. And afterwards, the first people that achieve 30 different species sightings, which is not an easy task. I've gone through my own pictures and I didn't get there, will be granted this card. But the incredible thing with this is it's really meant to, first of all, encourage people to share what they already have, because there's so much data that we all bring back from our holidays, from our vacations and dive trips, which is all valid data. You have a dive log, you have pictures, you can upload this data. And the other thing is it's meant to get people to think a bit more about the less sexy animals, for the lack of a better word. Everyone wants to shoot their tiger sharks, their hammerheads, the big sharks, the whale shark, but these animals only get you up so far. If you really want to achieve this challenge, you have to start thinking about the little stingray on the floor, the pajama shark lying around, the nurse sharks, and all of the little sharks that might not be the prominent, that might not be the main subject of your pictures and videos, but they're as important as others. And the reality is most of these species are less researched and less reported than your tiger sharks, than your hammerheads, where everyone wants to go and study these animals. And the Shark and Ray Census really aims to find more data on this. So with this challenge, we really hope to encourage people to start thinking about the other sharks that are there, which might not be that prominent in media and on Instagram, but no less interesting, no less important, and no less tricky to capture as a creative. And with this, I'd love to see stories and encourage you guys to think about what weird sharks are in the areas that you live. The UK has plenty different sharks that no one even knows are there. So this challenge is a really cool way to kind of show this as well and show different environments where sharks and ray lives, where people might not know about them. And now, how do we do this? And here's really where you guys come in. As a storyteller myself and a creative, I know that a story can only come from a heart and is meant to connect people. There can't be a script or an outline. I can give you guys ideas, but how this comes to life is really your words, your vision, your style. And these are the stories that really only you can tell and bring to life. The stories could be about adventures that you have and the connections with them, highlighting human connections, adventure, difficulties, and successes. You can talk a bit about encounters that changed you, the behind the scenes story of an incredible shot that you have, something incredible that you witnessed, how you made that feel. If you're a pro photographer, videographer, share the camera settings you use, and how to get the shot. All of these are tools that get people encouraged to listen more, and is a great way for us to share the shark senses in a less direct way. If you're involved in scientific storytelling, share interesting animal facts, how to identify an animal, how to engage with an animal, just content around how to correctly dive with sharks, how to behave in the water, how to be calm, how to not chase them, reaches a lot of people, because they might only approach it from, I want to learn how to get a better video, and they might leave watching a piece of content with, oh, actually, I have some cool footage I could share with the shark senses. And then also we would love to see and hear about your inspirational stories, why you keep going back, what is your connection to sharks, what's the moment that really stuck with you. All of these things are ways that you can connect with people, and by connection we will get people on board, and with getting people on board we will achieve our overall goal to really drive protection and conservation for these incredible animals. With this, I will close off my segment now, and I'll open it up to everyone, because I would love to brainstorm and hear your ideas on these things.
Wayne, there's a couple questions I think you could, if you open up the chat, we
Yeah,
can,
yeah,
some of
just
them are
hopping in there.
pertaining to how to get involved.
Perfect. Let's just see where
Just
we
a
left
few.
off.
So from while you look at for the questions, I want to kind of give a little bit of building on the Vanuatu example, why this is really important from a conservation perspective. So, first of all, of you listening, if Vanuatu came up on the Map Tap app, how many of you would know where Vanuatu is? It's a tiny little island in the South Pacific. It's 250,000 people, but its oceanic area is over 800,000 square kilometers. So there's over 500,000 square miles of ocean that it owns. And also Vanuatu is part of the area of the Pacific. It's a country that has control over a large amount of tuna fishing rights. Knowing of new species in Vanuatu, PADI is able to work with the Vanuatu government to ensure that these sharks and ray species are then taken into account when fisheries management and protection measures are being decided. We will be able to use stories like this new ray species that we think may be in Vanuatu waters for the first time. And Vanuatu, even though it's a tiny country, has an equal weight in managing an area of ocean that's more than the size of the area of the moon, the South Pacific. People forget how big the South Pacific is. And it has equal weight in managing fisheries in there as the US or the UK or even the European Union as one. So these stories, and the more that the census brings and teases out this information, the more we will be able to work with governments and make sure that these areas are protected and conservation measures are in. So while it seems like a small thing, it has a massive impact from a conservation perspective. So I just want to kind of show it's not just about, oh, this lovely thing is loved some way, isn't that great? It genuinely drives conservation forward.
Thank you, Ian. So to the questions, the first question I see here is from Claire in regards to the shark e-learning and why it's not free to encourage more divers getting involved. Katie, is this something you can speak to the pricing for the course?
Of course you would hand that over to me.
I'll just do pictures.
Claire, that's a good question. Right now, none of our courses are free. I think one of the reasons for that is because, first of all, there's two reasons. This is a difficult thing to tackle because it's a little complex. PADI is the one that sells the courses. So they are, as you know, they're a for-profit company. So they're the ones, I mean, we help write the courses, but they are the ones that provide them to their divers. PADI is a business, and every single one of our dive members are a business. So they're in the business to, they have to sell courses to stay, profitable. We're trying to provide more courses where it's a win-win, where they not only get to sell courses on conservation, they can help protect their own environment. So we see that as a win-win. There are things that we try to alleviate on the back end as far as helping with application fees for instructors, because if instructors have to pay app fees and different things for teaching courses. So we're working at different models moving forward. even this week we had this discussion on how we can do exactly what you're saying and open up these courses to more people around the world so more people can take them. Um, but yeah, so it's definitely something that we understand is difficult for some people to, I mean, there is a price associated. The other thing too is that PADI Aware does get a small, as you know, like all of the money that we make, and that's why content is so important as a nonprofit. This is PADI does not give us, they don't sustain our livelihoods. They're not paying, even though we have lots of in-kind support from the brand, like they help with PR, they help with HR, with legal, with all the things that it's great having this big parent company. We are still responsible for all of our fundraising and development. That's why we have a director that handles that's why we have these campaigns and we create all this content, is that we have to raise the money to have a shark and ray program, to have a dive against debris program. So we do get a small part of every time a course is taught, we get a piece of that, so which helps us create more programs in turn, to go on and create more people protecting the ocean. So I know that's kind of a long answer, but it is always like a tricky thing when it comes to, that type of this topic. But I am being honest when we're working honest with the salespeople at PADI right now, trying to figure out how we can open up the courses and make them increase the adoption by our PADI membership, which means they get into the hands of our divers.
Can I add something as well into this?
Please.
And purely from a conservation perspective. So PADI dive. So I'm not sure how people aware that PADI works. So PADI, the entity, is develops all the training agencies, and then individual dive operators around the world. The 6,700 PADI dive operators, which range from huge, 5-star hotels with PADI dive centers, like your Sandal resorts, right down to small, independently owned dive operators with 1-2 owners that kind of sell courses. One of the things that where conservation, and I can come at this from a conservation perspective, one of the things that citizen science kind of stumbles is it relies on the goodwill of some dive operators that are willing to reduce their sometimes very thin profit margins to do conservation. So the Bangor Adventure divers, they weren't maximizing their profits. They were ensuring that the revenue that they generated was sustaining a conservation program. That is unsustainable for very, very small entities, very small sort of, your mom and pop type entities that are in Vanuatu or in some of the smaller areas. So all of our conservation programs that we design, we need to make sure that they're baked into the business model of these dive operators. So if a dive operator is able to sell a course, and helps them remain profitable, it drives forward the conservation. But as Katie says, we want to try and make it as affordable for people as possible. We want to kind of reduce the barriers to entry, but also we want to make sure that that we're not just relying on the goodwill of a fraction of the dive sector. We want to kind of leverage that as well. So, there's kind of obviously lots of things to be discussed, and as Katie said, we're in active discussions about how can we make this the right level so that dive operators are profitable and bring in more divers and don't go out of business, but also it's not dissuading people from taking part of the census.
Thank you, Ian. Then the next question is from Lauren about the licensing agreement rights that we have with pictures that are submitted. So generally, there is no commercial license or anything given to us by submitting a photo. This is merely for the data. If we use them, if we want to use them for social media or anything else beyond that, we will connect with you and confirm that we can use them. How is it for scientific literature, Ian?
Sorry, say that.
What's the licensing if there's publications coming out with pictures submitted to the census?
So we're a little bit hypothetical. We haven't got a real world example of that. Obviously when you submit your photo, you have your own licensing, but we kind of work that out as it maps out. It's a bit of a wishy-washy answer.
Right. Thank you. I hope that answers your question, Lauren. Then Claire Camp asked, how do we join up? I run a freediving school on the Isle of Wight, a spirit freediver, and as part of the Isle of Wight Biosphere Festival, we have invited you to our Marine Conservation Talk on the 3rd of June. So how do we join? So if you want to submit data to us, on the last slide that Ian closed beforehand, there was actually the join link. So it's action.padiaware.org is the link to our conservation actions portal. And you can make account there. If you have a PADI account already as a diver or as a dive pro, it's the same sign in. Otherwise, you can create an account. And once you have an account, you can just click on the global shark and the census there and submit data. So it's very easy to start supplying data. If you want to work on storytelling and those kind of activations, I will be the best person to speak to. So you see my name written under my little picture here, Florian Allgäuer. So it's just my first name dot my last name at padiaware.org. If it's not in the description, you can email me with any ideas you have, and I would love to work with you and hear more about you. And the same goes for you, Danny. I've seen your comment about the film you're producing about angel sharks in the UK, and how there's a lot of synergy between your current angle and the census. I would love to connect with you separately and hear more about the project you do, as especially in the UK and the shark zone there is something I would love to highlight, as we have a massive audience in the UK and they know very little about what's actually around right at your doorstep. So I think there's definitely some cool synergies there to explore.
I'd like to jump in as well. So first of all, hey Danny, long time no speak. Great to hear from you. I think it was Fiji we last met. But yes, so when we were in the in Sharks International, we were working with the Shark Trust. We're actually in the process of mapping out how can we add value to existing programs. So we're speaking with Kat and Ali at the Shark Trust to make sure that anything that we are developing adds value, and vice versa. And I also want to kind of highlight the value of storytelling, because I know something that Danny was involved in when with the Manta Trust, if that's right. One of the most tangible examples of storytelling driving conservation happened in South Africa in 2013, I think it was, when the Manta Trust produced a 3D video of diving with mobile arrays off the Azores. I think it was off the Azores. I think Danny, you were involved in that, and this was presented at the site. It's a convention where 180 countries are looking at protecting endangered species from over unsustainable trade. And you have many countries in there who don't even have a coastline, many of the kind of like African countries, lots of EU countries, and they didn't really care whether sharks and rays and mobula rays and devil rays were protected. And when they put the 3D goggles on and they could see these mobula rays, this 3D interaction about what this meant to small island states, and I know that, yeah, no, it was you, Danny, that kind of did a lot of work on that. You had countries from African countries who suddenly went, I get it. These animals are like our big five. Your sharks, your mantas, your turtles, these are the ones that these small island states get, which is traditionally built into our culture, like the African animal, elephants, tigers, lions. And the African countries, because of the story and this video imaging, all supported the mobile array proposal because of that storytelling aspect. And I'm a policy wonk. My people think working for a PADI Aware on shark and ray conservation is all diving with sharks and videoing them, but I have vitamin D deficiency because I spend my life in windowless rooms, as I took Florian to Uzbekistan last year, not only landlocked, but double landlocked, one of only two double landlocked countries. You couldn't get further away from the sea. And yes, the science and the data, that kind of changes heads, but it's the stories that change hearts. That's the stuff that really kind of gets people to make a decision. So yeah, like I said, we are working with other organizations, Danny, and like I said, these storytelling aspects don't necessarily get presented at the decision-making table, which is where PADI Aware can come in. So it's great to see you again, Danny. And like I say, if any of you want to get in touch with either Katie, myself, Florian, come to OCL and they can, they'll happily distribute our contact details. It's a very small
Also,
world.
just to add on that one, with the actual film that you're producing, Danny, again, this is something that OCR would love to help distribute. So let's chat about that. But I just wanted to say a big thank you to Florian, Ian, and Katie because I found that incredibly interesting. I think one thing that I've just always taken for granted is what you said, Florian, was actually, oh, this isn't unique. Someone would have seen this, or I've seen this multiple times in my dives. So I think getting into the routine of when I come up and I surface and I sit down, I do my log, it should just be part of that kind of behavior. And if we can all just try and work towards that, whether it's a free dive, a snorkel, an actual dive, if we can just try and get that into that routine, that would probably be the best kind of opportunity for us to get involved as well. And it's relatively easy to sign up. We've got the app on your phone. It should just be part of the process.
And for all of you, I know Danny mentioned it, it's so for all of us, it's first name dot last name at padiaware.org. So if you want to get in touch with us, so if you just write our names down, and that's how you can get in touch with us if you want to follow up.
Brilliant. I think. Oh, we've just got one more question from Lauren. When a user submits a photo, what kind? Oh no, we've been through that one. Sorry,
We've
done
done
that one.
fine. Yeah.
I thought it was a different one. All good. I think that's it for the questions. Claire's already sent you an email, which is fantastic, very productive, like that. But yeah, like they both said, any questions, if you've not got their emails direct, come through us, we can redirect. And OCR will very much be part of promoting this, pushing this, and cannot wait to see some of the photo entries that come through for the contest too. Really excited for that.
Yes,
Thank you so
this will
much.
only be a success at scale. This will only be a success if as many divers are telling us what is out there, but also what isn't out there or where it's not. So, if you feel you can help us, spread this message, get people involved, get people enthused and excited about it, get new people into the water. This will be the success because we're not coming with a research question. We're not coming with a definitive. We need to be finding this. We want to bring scale, and if you can help us reach that scale, that's exactly what we need.
Totally. And also archives, right? We've got all of us between us all. If we were to go through our archives, I think we've got a lot hiding there. So definitely have a look at that next time you're going through your hard drives. Claire, we will be sending across the recording. Please don't worry. We will do the same with everyone on this call and everyone that actually signed up because I had a lot of emails saying that they couldn't make it due to the other commitments, but they did sign up knowing that they'd get the recording. So we'll be sending that over. But I think other than that, Florian, Ian, let me know if there's anything else. But from our side, just a big thank you so much for sharing this.
Thank you.
Yeah, really, thank you
Mm.
for kind of convening this. This is exactly what the audience we'll be speaking to.
Yeah, definitely. And always apologies once again for all the technical difficulties. Um, it's me and technology, really. We've never got on. But thank you all so much and for all taking the time out today. It's been wonderful chat. I've learned a lot and I'm really looking forward to submitting some of my stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so
Thank you, everyone.
much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.